There are 6 really critical mistakes that people make when they're doing cardio and then they subsequently lose muscle. And it's totally avoidable. So I've got Nick Bear here. We're going to go over 6 things that you can do to avoid these issues. And we're going to kind of outline the actual problem and then give a solution. So I'll let you lead off, Nick.
Yeah, I think my favorite one that I've made the biggest mistake with in the past is, and I'm a runner, but running my easy days too hard. So in terms of building endurance, building cardiovascular conditioning, you have your aerobic capacity and then your anaerobic capacity. Your aerobic capacity is spending time and distance below your max aerobic heart rate. So really running in your zone 2, maybe even zone 3 running ability. This is going to build this aerobic ability, right? And then you add on and you refine it with some speed work or some anaerobic work, some lactate threshold or critical velocity work. But what happens to a lot of people, and I made this mistake horribly, is that I was never running my easy days or taking my easy days easy enough. I wasn't spending time in zone 2. I was spending what I thought was zone 2 and zone 4 or even 5. So one of my biggest tips is if you have an easy day, take it easy. Stay in that zone 2, stay below your max aerobic heart rate, really focus on building that aerobic base and then refine on your speed days. But take your easy days easy.
That's a really good tip because people end up in that gray area where they're like aerobic and anaerobic and dancing back and forth. And then they're not actually getting the fat loss they want out of things too, if that's a goal for them, because they're kind of transitioning out of that beta oxidation mode where their body's oxidizing fats. Because in that zone 2 mode, you're really oxidizing fat quite well. As you start creeping into zone 4, you're becoming much more glycolytic. So your actual fat burning is much less anyway. So that's true for body composition too.
Yep.
I put a link down below for ButcherBox too, if you want to get some really like seriously amazing tasting bison. They have amazing ground bison and amazing grass-fed, grass-finished ground beef, which, dude, I really do think that ground beef is, I think ground beef is underrated. Like you get collagen with it, you get some of the gristle that's actually good for you, but man, we throw that sucker out. That's like, we always say, oh, it's the nice cuts of meat that we want. The ground beef is where it's at. Anyhow, so that link down below gets you grass-fed, grass-finished cuts of meat, not only the cuts of meat, but the ground beef, but also chicken options, pork options, scallops, other seafood options, real bacon, good stuff, all at that link down below, and then it gets delivered to your doorstep. So it takes one step out of the prep. Seriously, give them a shot. It's called ButcherBox. It'll change your life, at least as far as the quality is concerned. Like if you go to the grocery store and you look at meat now, it's like bright red. It's like not even the way it's supposed to be. You look at ButcherBox, it's like a deep red, the way that it should look. Anyhow, that link is down below, top line of the description.
The one that I've got is going to be improper supplementation. Now, I'm not a big, like, take a ton of supplements and call that a day kind of guy. Like I think strategic utilization of supplements is important. If someone is doing a lot of cardio and they're also doing a lot of resistance training because they're really trying to change how they look and feel, I think it's foolish to not be open to proper supplementation. I think it's very important. And I feel like a couple of things that people should consider if they're doing a lot of cardio and resistance training is creatine. Even if it's 2.5 grams or a low dose, 2.5 grams or 5 grams, because creatine is not just going to help you with your resistance training. Creatine can help you with the hydration aspect that can help you with your running or your cardio, but it can also help you regenerate ATP throughout different phases of running. If you hit a hill and all of a sudden you have to really crank up intensity to the point where you might actually demand high intensity, that's going to pull from creatine reserves from your creatine phosphate stores, in which case creatine supplementation can help you. I think proper antioxidant supplementation becomes important. People don't realize that if you are really demanding a lot of your body with cardio, that is a heavy stressor on the body. You increase what is called the reactive oxygen species. And that's a place where antioxidants come in. So I think things like vitamin C, like echinacea, like vitamin E, like alpha lipoic acid, these things really do play a role and can aid in the recovery. If you recover from your cardio, then you can transition into, of course, your resistance training better and get better outcome. And then protein's a little bit of a fine line there too. I think protein supplementation should absolutely be considered. I think most people in today's day and age have a very difficult time meeting their protein requirements, especially with resistance training and cardio. So be open to protein supplementation, be open to amino acids, just be open to it and don't be so close-minded on it, because it might be the difference between you being able to run and lift versus just one or the other.
Right. Well, my next one is improper fueling. This is focused more on food, obviously. Total caloric intake, total energy intake is going to make a massive difference if you're increasing energy expenditure through cardiovascular training, specifically running. And it's funny because it's not funny, but it's a clear example. You know, I just finished a big cut. I lost a significant amount of weight, got very, very lean. And the leaner I got, obviously the lower my energy intake, my caloric intake got as well. I was in a pretty steep caloric deficit. And as my caloric deficit got deeper and deeper, running got harder and harder. And you would think as I'm getting lighter and leaner, running would get easier. But no, running became very, very difficult because I was underfueled. I wasn't fueled for these training sessions. So really emphasizing, even if you're in a caloric deficit to lose weight, fueling for your cardiovascular training and conditioning, especially depending on what that stimulus is and how impactful it is. And this is regardless if you are a carbohydrate fueled athlete or a fat adapted endurance athlete. There's a lot of keto fat adapted endurance athletes and it's becoming more popular, but really making sure you're properly fueling for training sessions and throughout the day to promote recovery as well.
Man, that's solid advice, because a lot of people jump into endurance work or just doing cardio in general, and they don't compensate appropriately with their nutrition because they think, oh, well, you know, I'm just burning 100 calories on the run. Well, you don't realize that there's post-exercise needs as well that increase because of that cardio. So that's really good advice.
Yeah, I was doing this track workout with this group of individuals about a year ago. And there was this woman who kept falling out of the workout every week. Every Wednesday we had a track workout. She was always falling out of this workout. And the one day I just asked her, because she was really suffering during this run. So, well, what'd you have this morning to eat before? She said, nothing. I didn't eat anything. And me, before this run, I had 100 grams of carbs already, because I know how to fuel for these training sessions and I feel great the whole way through. I said, okay, well, what'd you have for dinner last night? She said, I had some chicken and some veggies, like lean chicken, veggies, no fats. So she really didn't have an actual meal until the morning prior to that run. So there's a clear example. Like, you can't make it through the workout because you haven't had the calories to support this training session where you're putting out this massive effort that's required.
Yeah, man, it's such a fine line too. It's like, even if people are training for fat loss, there's a very fine line between what is the right amount of nutrition that I can give myself so that I can push it hard during this workout and actually burn more calories. Whereas like, there really is a fine line. Like, you could actually eat a little bit more, have a better force output and better overall workout to where you're net negative on calories at the end of the workout because you worked harder, but your mental satisfaction is so much better too because you actually got through the workout with ease. So it's interesting, nice dichotomy between like working out for fat loss versus working out for performance, and also being able to find that balance. Like, maybe some of your workouts are for fat loss and you don't mind dogging it and feeling sluggish and feeling like garbage. But if you have workouts that are performance oriented, you need to be able to dissect and understand where that line is. My next one that's really important is, if you are going to commit to doing cardio, whether it's for fat loss or whether it's for performance, that commitment comes with a commitment to resistance training too. The body wants to preserve what it deems as relevant. If you put stimulus on a muscle and you actually work that muscle, it's not as simple as mechanical overload equals muscle. The muscle is metabolic. And what I mean by that is, when the muscle receives a signal that you have been working it, it tells the brain, hey, this tissue is relevant, don't burn it. This guy clearly uses it. And that's how the body looks at tissue. So when we are strength training, we aren't just mechanically overloading our muscle and stimulating potential growth. We are telling the brain that that muscle is very important to survival. And whatever you do, try to avoid burning it at all costs. So it puts you into a much more opportune state of muscle preservation. And you don't even need much. Like if you are someone that is running or doing cardio, again, as your means of fat loss or performance, adding in 2 days of resistance training is all it will take to preserve and at least not atrophy.
My next one is training volume. Now, this is applicable to either performance or fat loss goals. Example, if your goal is to lose weight over an extended period of time, the right answer probably is not to do 1 hour of cardio 7 days a week. You want to apply the minimal effective stimulus to facilitate that goal. So maybe you start with 1 to 2 days of cardio a week. And then as you're deeper into that caloric deficit and you're achieving this fat loss goal, maybe you add an additional cardiovascular training session into the week and then an additional one. Same for if you're training for performance. If you're not used to running at all, you're not going to start by running 30 miles a week. You might start by running 10 miles a week and then adding 10% mileage every week until you reach your goal of where you want to be. But adding too much volume too fast, one, can result in injuries. It can result in burnout, inefficiencies, and just ineffective training sessions. That's
really good advice, because you see a lot of people, especially in the fat loss world, you know, even if it's like, oh, it's safe, it's an elliptical, that's not going to bother me, it's not going to hurt me. But you're going from 0 workouts at all to 40 minutes on an elliptical 4 days per week, your risk of getting hurt is still pretty high from an overuse injury. So that's really solid advice. And mine dovetails nicely with that. It's not varying your intensity, or in the case of general cardio, varying your modality. So in the case of someone that's not necessarily a runner, but just wants to burn some fat and wants to be able to kind of change up their cardio and do different forms of cardio, that is very important that you do change it up. You don't just say, hey, I'm going to go on the elliptical and do that at the same intensity, at the same load, at the same duration every single time for the next 2 years. The body is all about adaptation and efficiency. And you and I know this with running, that, you know, if I haven't run in 5 years and I go out for a 5 mile run, that 5 mile run is probably going to wreck my body, but it's also going to burn a ton of calories. If I've been running 40 miles a week every week for the last 5 years and I go out and run 5 miles, even weighing the same that I would weigh otherwise, same weight, I'm probably going to burn a fraction of the calories because my body's developed efficiency. So a huge cardio mistake that people make is not varying their intensity or not varying their modality. And when it comes down to performance, it applies too. Like, you need to have easy days, recovery days. You need to have long days. You need to have short days. You need to have higher intensity days. You need to have speed days. You need to have turnover days, all these things that are very important. But I can speak specifically from the fat loss side, that as you start to develop efficiency, as it starts to get easy, that's when you need to change it up. And if you're on a cardio machine, without looking at your heart rate, that machine is not going to know your caloric output. So if you think that you've been burning 500 calories every single day on that elliptical, that you've been going on it for the last 7 years, you're sorely mistaken. You're probably burning half of that. It's time to switch it up. It should feel moderately difficult. And one of the pieces of advice that I give is, again, cardio for fat loss, base it on a rating of perceived exertion, 0 to 10. Where are you landing? Are you landing at a 6 or a 7? Because that's a great spot to be for fat loss. And if it starts becoming a 3, that's a win for efficiency, but not necessarily a win metabolically.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Kind of completely opposite for performance goals, where, you know, you want to hold that same speed at an easier effort.
Totally. Yep.
You know what I mean? So like if after 5 months of training, you're running that same speed, that same distance, and your effort was a 7, but now it's a 3, that's great improved efficiency.
Yep. Or better yet, if you can be okay with living at the pain threshold of a 7, then keep it at a 7, and that means you're getting faster, right?
Definitely.
So it's like, if you're keeping a static rating of perceived exertion at a 9 all the time, you want to have your output at a 9 be better than that other guy's output at a 9.
Yeah, that's right.
So, well, that was a quick wham bam, thank you ma'am, 6 things that you can fix with your cardio to get more out of it. Nick, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, social media, it's Nick Bear. I've been documenting my life on social for the last 10 years, so it's all out there for everyone to watch.
Right on. Okay. See y'all tomorrow.